What makes a business sellable or exitable is you've got to get it investable. It's got to be something that somebody would want to invest in. You know, anytime you're an entrepreneur, you're very close to major things happening, either good or bad, almost every day. And it could just be one decision, one relationship, one phone call, one email that could change everything.
How do you kind of define success in your business and personal from this point forward?
The dictionary simply says that success is achieving the outcome that you desire. So what is it that you want? And if you get what you want, then that's success. And so nobody can define that from the outside. If all I want is a donut and I acquire a donut, I'm successful. How you think about things will dictate your reality. And if you don't become a student mindset, you will be dictated by other people's realities. You will think whatever they tell you. You will react with worry and fear every time something happens that you don't like, and you will be a victim of your own fear and anxieties.
Hey, everyone out there. This is Alan, CEO of FreeCashflow.io. Welcome to Profit Powerhouse, the podcast where we sit down with inspiring entrepreneurs to uncover the secrets behind their success. We're here to learn what drives their growth, challenges they overcome, and how they master their finances. Our goal? To help you achieve the same success while maximizing your profits. Let's dive in. Today, we're joined by Jason Duncan, known as the Real Jason Duncan and America's exit coach. Jason helps entrepreneurs build what he calls exitable businesses, companies that thrive without the founders being trapped in daily operations. His journey is remarkable. He went from being an unemployed middle school teacher in 2010 to building a multi-million-dollar business that landed on both Inc. and Entrepreneur Magazine's fastest growing company list. But here's the twist. When he tried to sell that business in 2019, he discovered it's completely unsellable because it was too dependent on him. That pivotal moment birthed his life's work, the exit while exiting framework and the XOS method, which helps entrepreneurs transition from owner-operator to owner-manager to owner-investor. He's now a TEDx speaker, best-selling author, and host of the Root of All Success podcast. Jason also got viral for his commitment to family. A clip from his appearance on Dropping Bombs earned over 32 million views when he said, "We don't say divorce," about his marriage philosophy. He's here today to share how you can build a business that serves your life instead of enslaving you to it. Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Jason, for those who don't know you that well, can you share a little bit more about your background and what really inspired you to start your business?
Well, I spent 13 years as a pastor, and then got sick of doing that. Went back to school, got a master's in education, started teaching school, and I taught school for 4 years. And in the spring of the fourth year of teaching, my principal came to me and let me know that due to budget cuts, they were going to have to let me go. They weren't going to be able to renew my contract for the following school year, even though I was the number one teacher in the county. I was a great teacher. I just didn't have tenure, and I was the last guy hired in the building. And that ultimately was the impetus for me to start a business. I thought, I was going to go do something on my own. So I didn't have any backup plans. I had no savings account. I had two kids and a wife at home. And I thought, well, I'll just go start a company. And I did. And the rest, as they say, is history.
Incredible. And all these entrepreneurs I've talked to have gone through so many ups and downs. What would you say were your lowest of lows and highest of highs in your journey?
Well, the lows are way far more outnumbered than the highs. If it were easy, everybody would be doing it.
Exactly.
So, there was a time in 2018, we hit $1 million in EBITDA, and I thought, this is it. We're good. And let's sell the company. But then that's when I discovered that the company was worthless without me at the helm. And I'd built just a very successful prison for myself. And the following year, I was, 2018, we make $1 million in profit. The following year, I was dealing with a business partner issue that consumed most of my time and attention. And that next year, we lost money. The first time we'd ever lost money in the history of the company. So we went from $1 million in profit to red ink in 12 months. Wow. And that sucked. It was a pretty bad year. 2019, up to that point, had been the worst year of my life. So it was pretty bad. And then I've had other lows since then. Anytime you're an entrepreneur, you're very close to major things happening, either good or bad, almost every day. And it could just be one decision, one relationship, one phone call, one email that could change everything. Now, on the highs, I'm doing what I love. I feel like that I'm doing exactly what Father created me to do. I'm on earth doing exactly what He said to go do, and I'm doing it. I love it. I get paid well, and I get to change the lives of other people along the process. So I couldn't ask for anything better.
Incredible. Amen, brother. What exactly, I'm sure a lot of listeners out there are very curious, right? What exactly makes a business exitable? And why do so many entrepreneurs fail to build one?
Well, I want you to think about this from a buyer's perspective. So if you're an investor, you're a buyer, and you say, I want to buy a business. Okay, there's two types of buyers. There's well, maybe more than two, but at least two. So one type of buyer is like, hey, I just want to own my own company and I just want a better job than what I've got now. So let me go buy an ice cream store. Let me go buy a car lot. Let me do whatever. And it becomes their job that they own. Okay, that's a buyer who's just looking for a job.
Hmm.
But the other kind of buyer is an investor. He or she's looking for something as an asset that they can buy. They will have good tax advantages, that they will make good cash flow, etc. Now, the first type of buyer, they exist and they're out there. But let's be honest, they don't have any money. So they can't pay any money. So when they go to buy businesses, they're looking for businesses they can afford that are going to be sold for less than $100,000, maybe $200,000 or $300,000 at the most, because that's all they can probably muster up. So we're not talking to those types of people. You and I are not dealing with entrepreneurs who are doing that type of business that only that type of person would be able to buy. We're building businesses that we hope the second type of buyer would want. Now, if that's what the type of business we're trying to build, what does that buyer want? What does the lens he or she look through? How is that different than any other person looking at a business? Well, they want a business that is an asset and throws off cash flow without any single point of failure. That means any person. That can't be one person, one contract, one customer, one vendor. It can't be any of those things because that introduces risk and no buyer wants risk. So the answer to the
Makes sense.
question, what makes a business sellable or exitable, is you've got to get it investable. It's got to be something that somebody would want to invest in. And that can't mean, just like I did, I built $1 million profitable business that wasn't worth anything because it was dependent upon me to make it work.
Uh, no, that makes a lot of sense, Jason. And I'm sure this is all kind of inclusive in the XOS method that we talked about in the intro, right? How does that XOS method kind of help entrepreneurs transition from being an operator to an investor?
So we developed the XOS method. I'd love to say that it was something that I just thought of and I worked it out myself. And it wasn't just me. It was the collaboration I had with my clients, because when I wrote the book Exit Without Exiting, I released that book in 2023. I had exited my company 3 years prior to that. And in the book, I wrote about my experience and how I did it. And then, of course, I did, the first time you do anything, you're probably not going to be very good at it. But that was the first time I did an exit without exiting, without having to sell the company. And I did it the best way I knew how. And it worked until it didn't. But I wrote a book about the experience before it didn't. So as I was looking at the book going, wait a minute, there's a lot of things in here that I left out. There's a lot of things that are dangers that weren't, I didn't warn anybody about. So I started talking to my clients like, how would you do this in this situation? And that's how we developed the XOS method. The XOS method stands for Exeter Operating System. And we developed a 7-stage methodology around what you got to start from, and we build to in order to get to a profitable exit. And I'm not going to bore you with all 7 stages, but stages 1 and 2 are for what we call the owner operator. This is for the person that's just in the weeds every day. They're the ground level grinder. They're focused on just surviving, and there's certain things they have to do in stages 1 and 2 before, a sale is even possible. And then stages 3, 4, and 5 are for what we refer to as the owner manager. Now they don't have to do, they're not doing everything themselves, but they still are in charge of everything. Every decision
Mm,
still flows through them. And that's where I was, frankly. In my lighting company, I was the owner manager. I was making a lot of money, doing well, but it still flowed through me. Everything came to me. And then stages 6 and 7, that's the last 2 stages. Stage 6 is called exit without exiting. That's when you get to a place where you're an owner investor. You don't have to show up every day. You're not the daily manager. Decisions aren't running through you, and you have optionality. This is where true freedom starts to show itself, because you can either go to the office or not. You can either show up or not show up. You're
Mm.
still in charge of casting the vision and making sure everybody's on the same page, but you don't have to be there. And then the final stage is the ultimate sale, when you're finally ready to exit at the highest value possible. And what we found, Alan, is that most entrepreneurs who come through my programs, they when they get to stage 6, they realize, hey, this is pretty cool. I don't think I want to sell yet. I'm making good cash flow. I'm making good money. The team is doing a great job. It takes minimal hours every month for me to run this thing. Why would I want to sell it?
No, that makes a lot of sense, Jason. I mean, I would say a lot of the businesses and clients that comes through us, they're stuck in stage 1 and 2 that you're talking about, right? In part of
Mm-hmm.
your methodology, the whole business is run through them. They're very, very much stuck in a mentality where they don't know why did I even do this in the first place. I could have
Yeah.
just done a normal, 40-hour job, 9 to 5, and I get to clock in and clock out, right? But most entrepreneurs, they're wearing multiple hats, right? They're the marketer, they're the sales team, they're doing the finance, they're figuring out taxes, and they're sleeping with, a mentality of like, wow, I don't know what tomorrow's gonna bring, but I'm not ready for it, right? It sounds like a lot of them will really benefit from your book and your teachings, right? To how to get to a point where they don't have to feel like they're always 200% invested,
Yeah.
right, in their business operations. What would you say for most businesses out there? Like, what is the right time to start preparing your business for kind of an exit mentality, right? And is there a financial threshold that they need to think about, operational, right? What is it that are like indicators to them that's like, hey, I'm ready to take that next step?
Well, I'm a firm believer in the start with the end in mind philosophy. Just like if you look at your GPS unit that we all have in our phones or in our
Hmm.
cars, the way those work is they work from end point where you want to be back to where you are. And most people don't think about that, but that's truly how they work. Is when you say, I want to go from wherever your location is to, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. I want to go there. I want to go to the White House. All right. So if that's where you want to go and you punch that in your GPS, the GPS doesn't look at where you are first and decide how to, every turn on the way. It goes all the way to the end and calculates the route back to where you are. That's how
Mm.
GPSs work. And that's probably an oversimplification. I'm sure somebody out there is going to correct me on that, but that's an oversimplification. Well, everything worth doing in life should do the same thing. You don't say, I'm just going to start a weight loss journey and see where this goes. No, you say, I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to go from what I weigh now to that. So you're working backwards from the goal that you want. The same thing in an exit. If you ever want to exit the daily operations of your business, or you want to sell the business, then you need to start day one preparing for that inevitability. Because the truth of the matter is, every single entrepreneur will exit his or her business. There's never been one who didn't. Everybody's either going to die, or they're going to shut it down, or they're going to sell it to somebody else. That's it.
Okay.
There are no other three options. There are no options other than those three.
I was wondering how that was gonna fit in, right? It's like, wait, some people do hang on to their business. Oh, okay, I guess yes, they can pass away, and that's a way of exiting their business. Also, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, so like, how do we do it, Jason? Right? So, say I'm an entrepreneur. I've been in business for 3 to 5 years. I've been having steady growth in my business. Maybe I grew it to, let's say, $5 million top line. Right? Is that a good point to say I need to go work with someone like Jason who can show me if I want to exit in the next 2 years, how do I achieve that, right? It's like that's kind of what I want to listeners out there to kind of know. Is like, what am I at a position where I can work with Jason Duncan and have him coach me and mentor me to get to that successful high exit point?
Yeah. So every person who wants to succeed and go places needs to have a mentor, a mastermind, a coach, an advisory board, or somebody to help you. Now, whether that's me or not, that's certainly up for discussion. But you need somebody. I remember when I started my company, I was of course an unemployed school teacher, and I wasn't very smart, but I did know I needed somebody, and I went and found a business partner. Now, I'm not saying that that's what you should do. As a matter of fact, business partners can be some of the worst decisions you could ever make. But in my decision, I was like, I need somebody. So I brought somebody in. And then, I don't know, fast forward 5 or 6 years, I learned what a business coach was. I didn't even know what that was. And I hired a business coach. And Alan, it was after I hired the business coach is when we actually started producing tons of revenue and profitability, and the business ran better. Now, was he a genius and he had sprinkled magic dust on everything and gave me three wishes? No, it was a matter of perspective. He was Harvard, he was particularly Harvard educated, had worked at Ford in the corporation for a while. He had seen how big business worked. He was also a Six Sigma guy. He understood, that process, and he turned that into a very profitable consulting company. And I hired him and he helped us tremendously. And then I started learning what these things called masterminds are. I didn't know what those were. And I started joining masterminds, and that began the accelerated path towards being the smarter than the average entrepreneur. Because most entrepreneurs, let's face it, aren't entrepreneurs. They're just business owners. They have a job that they happen to own. They're not an entrepreneur. They haven't taken any risk, it really any different than anybody else. But the entrepreneurs, if you really want to be one, you need people around you. So yes, to answer your question, you need somebody. Now, I particularly, that's what I do. I mean, I run a mastermind for entrepreneurs called the Exeter Club. It's for entrepreneurs doing at least $3 million a year or more in revenue, or at least 300K in EBITDA. So if they're high margins but low revenue, that they could also qualify. And we have other offerings for people under $3 million a year, but that's who primarily we work with on a day-to-day basis. And we have a 6-coach advisory team that includes CPAs, mindset coaches, wealth managers, lawyers, investment bankers. They're all working together for our clients' behalf, and our clients get access to them to help them with all those areas, whether it be legal, finance, mindset, wealth planning, etc.
That's incredible, Jason. I didn't understand how comprehensive your plan is for these entrepreneurs that come to your program, right? It seems like you take care of all their kind of compliance, back office, all their needs, right? So they can focus being, the best version of a CEO of themselves, and then plan for their exit, right? And then now turning attention more on you, Jason. Obviously, you have great success in running your business thus far, and you know exactly what to do in every step of the way. But how do you kind of define success in your business and personally from this point forward?
I'm so glad you asked me that question. I have a podcast myself called The Root of All Success, and I'm about 350 something episodes in, and I've asked every single guest that question, and it's such a great question. And rarely do people ask me that question, so thank you for doing so. I have two ways I would answer that. The first way that I would answer it is the dictionary simply says that success is achieving the outcome that you desired. So what is it that you want? And if you get what you want, then that's success. And so nobody can define that from the outside. If all I want is a donut and I acquire a donut, I'm successful. And you can't tell me I'm not. That's just what success is technically from a definition standpoint. But I think as I've grown as an entrepreneur, and I've been, I went from unemployed school teacher to millionaire, and then lost millions, and then trying to build it back. I mean, I've been all over the board, and from the outside looking in, people would say, well, he's successful or not successful, depending on where they see me in the edge of my story. Like, where are you at? But I think that true success kind of boils down to 5 sequential things. Number one is freedom of energy, like the ability to have total control over how you show up every day and what you put your energy to, because you're fat, sick, and medicated, and you can't walk up steps without huffing and puffing, and you can't put in the hours you need to be successful. Success is going to always be elusive. The second thing I think is freedom of money. And unfortunately, this is where most people think success is just having a lot of money, but that's not true. I know lots of people who have way more money than me, and I still think I'm way more successful than they are. The third thing I think is time, is freedom of time, having the ability to choose, how you spend your time and not being dictated. And that's probably the thing that I love more than anything. I mean, I have time freedom in ways that there's people that make a lot more money than me that don't have. Like I don't. So I love freedom of time. Then the fourth thing is freedom of choice, freedom to actually choose what you do every day, choose what you do with your time and attention and your energy and money. And then fifth and final is freedom of purpose. It's the freedom to pursue the purpose that we feel like that we are on this planet for. And the unfortunate part is a lot of people are pursuing purpose before they get the other freedoms. And you can't really ever pursue and succeed at getting your purpose accomplished if you're still stuck with no energy, no money, no time, and not ability to choose. So those are the 5 things I believe redefine what wealth and success truly are.
I'm so glad I asked you that question, Jason. I mean, like, that is incredible and something that I think all entrepreneurs should really keep in mind, right, as they go through this journey. That money is not the end all be all of the success metric they should be looking at, right?
Yeah,
It's a combination of those things. Because if they have money but no time, no purpose, and no choice, did they really make true success happen, right?
yeah,
And the answer is probably no, right? So
yep,
incredible insight there, Jason. I hope we can put this in as a clip and share it to the world, and everyone should follow along with that as a philosophy to follow along with life. Jason, before we turn into more of the financial tax management side of things, we'd love to ask you a fun question, right? Before we get to the serious topic. It's a question we love asking all our podcast guests on here. Feel free to answer in any way possible, just for fun, okay? So imagine one day a rocket ship landed in front of your door, and inside the rocket ship contains $5 billion. Okay, and the condition is you must spend that money within 30 days, or that money disappears. Right, which means you can't just put it in a savings account and collect interest on it. For example, that choice is out the door. What are the three things or three ways you would spend that money on?
spending you said billion with a B, right?
$1 billion.
Yeah, okay. Spending $5 billion in 30 days is much more difficult than I think that most people consider, because my first choice would be real estate, because it's the biggest thing that you can buy with 5 billion. But even that can't be closed in 30 days. In most cases, it's going to take longer than 30 days. So I don't know. If I was forced to do that, I would probably buy as many things that are very expensive as possible, because you said I have to
Okay.
spend it, not invest it. Now,
Yep. No investing. Yep.
if I had different rules, I've always said, and my wife and I made the decision a long time ago, any money that we ever win or come into, like this crazy scenario, we give
Yep.
half of it away. Now you said
Oh,
you
amazing.
said spend, so like we give half. So if I won the $100 million in the lottery, I'm going to put $50 million into a charitable fund, and we will my family for the rest of our existence on planet Earth would be giving away that money. That's that's what I do. But you said I couldn't do that. So if I'm spending it, I would buy as many expensive things as possible. I'm into
Yeah. Tell
motorcycles
me.
and
Tell me a
cars.
few things that motivates you. What would you spend it
Motorcycles.
on?
I'm a huge motorcycle fan.
There we
I've
go.
got I would if I'd be the Jay Leno of motorcycles. I'd have garages full of motorcycles.
Yep.
We love to go RVing, so I'd probably buy the biggest, baddest, coolest RV there ever was on the planet. I'd buy land. I love land, but it'd be hard to do in 30 days. But I'd like to buy a few nice watches, I guess. I don't know, some nice
Oh,
clothes. I don't
nice,
know that I
nice.
could spend. I don't know. I could spend 5 billion in 30 days. That's probably difficult, if not
So you
impossible.
be wearing like at least 10 watches and riding that RV or motorcycle on your new land that you have, right?
I guess so.
So, hey, it sounds like great way for retirement, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you for entertaining me with those answers. So now, Jason, to move on more to financial and tax management, entrepreneurs out there, from my experience, they always struggle with this part, right? They think about tax and financial management last, usually, in their line of works that they do. But by the time it hit them, they realize they're not prepared for it, or they haven't done enough to optimize their tax situation, and they sleep and they have nightmares about Uncle Sam coming after them for tax dollars. Right.
Yeah.
So I would love to know, given you're a successful entrepreneur, if you can give some advice on there or just some insight of how do you approach managing the financial side of your business?
All right. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you. Let me reach back here and grab it.
All
So
right.
this book right here, I'm sure, almost certain you've read it. Maybe not, but this is the book that I think every single entrepreneur should read. And this is how you should manage your money. This is Profit
Profit
First.
first. Yes.
Are you
Mm-hmm.
familiar with it?
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
so Profit First by Mike McAllowitz. I've had him on my podcast a couple of times. Great guy. I've met him in person. He's a great author. This is the best. This is the best book I think he's ever written, and probably one of the best books I've ever read. But conceptually, what it says is that general accounting procedure generally says income minus expenses equals profit. And what he says is it should be income minus what you want as profit should dictate how much you spend, right? And so it's much more complicated than that, but that's the basic idea. But for example, right now, we're in a pretty tight cash flow crunch as a business. It's not frequent that happens, but it does happen from time to time, and we're in one right now. But I'm not well, to say I'm not worried about it would probably be lying, but I'm not overly concerned about it to the extent that like I don't know where, how we're going to handle it because I'm committed to the profit first bookkeeping method. So every dollar that hits our income account immediately gets distributed into an owner compensation account, a profit account, a tax account, an events account, a payroll account. I think I have like 8 accounts set up. And so right now I've got money sitting in all those accounts and I'm not worried about do I have enough money in that account to do whatever. Before I knew about Profit First, all the money we made went straight into one account. All bills got paid out of the same account. And then when tax time came, it's like, hey, do we have enough money for me to pay my taxes? Or hey, can I take a draw? Can I take a distribution, for my own self or whatever? And it all came out of the same account with no understanding of where that dollar was earmarked. So I think Profit First would change your life financially if you really apply it.
Yeah, absolutely. When I read that book, what would stand out to me is humans spend what they see, right? So if you put everything in one account, they see that, hey, I have $100,000 left. All right, let me go and invest it. We'll spend it all, right, in one
Yeah,
go,
it's
right?
true.
But I always live in philosophy is I an investment should happen first, right? Like if I get a paycheck, some of that money should be allocated away to the savings account. Some of it should be in this account, this retirement account. Some should be invested, right? So that at the end of the day, what you see in your main account, that's actually what you should be spending and nothing more,
Yep.
right? Because I'm a visual guy, right? If you give me $100,000 or $5 billion in one account, I'm gonna try to spend it all. But if you're saying, oh, I only get $1 million, then my immediately fixate my whole like thinking on that $1 million, right? And it's a good thing, right? Because like, oh shoot, I blew through my $1 million. Guess what? All the rest of it went somewhere, and you're still fine. You're still operating and not on the street somewhere asking for money, right? And that kind of thinking. So it's an amazing book. I agree with Jason here. I hope readers out there can go pick it up. I saw it was on sale the other day on Amazon. So it's a great book to everyone to read. Jason, that was amazing insight. The other thing that listeners will love to know about and learn about is from someone like you is any financial metrics or tax write-offs that you have come across in your time in business that has really drove an impact in how you think about business or how you think about tax optimization.
Well, I would preface this by saying that I believe that taxation is theft. I don't agree with what our country has allowed people to our governments to get away with. I just saw today that the state of Florida has passed through I think the House to eliminate property taxes for primary residents in the state of Florida. And who knows if that'll become law, but I think property taxes are one of the cheatingest, lyingest, thievingest things that ever happened to us. I think
I'm with you there.
income tax is pretty close to that, but I think the death tax is another one. Capital gains is probably another. I mean, there's so much problem I have with taxes. So I got to whatever I say next. That's what I believe.
Yeah, no
Now,
worries. Yeah, go
now,
ahead.
but the second part of that is that legally, as I understand it, there are taxes that we are obliged legally to pay, and
Sure.
therefore, I think we have to, as good citizens, pay those taxes. I don't think evasion is the right word, but avoidance is definitely what I believe in. I want to avoid as much as possible, and if I owe Uncle Sam or the federal government or the state or the local governments, if I owe them $1, I am not giving them $1 and a penny. I will give them $1. So if I can figure out how to really only owe them 90 cents, I'll figure that out.
Hmm.
Now,
Yeah,
the question
that's
is,
good.
have I found tax advantaged investments or other ways to do it? Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of them, but I think the biggest one that stands out for me is the growth of money without having to be taxed. And that, I use properly structured whole life insurance through the bank on yourself model, where I'm able to put 100% of my income into these policies that are structured correctly. And then I borrow against those policies for all my living expenses and any investments I want to make. And that money grows as if I didn't withdraw it, tax free and infinite compounding interest uninterrupted and until I die. That to me is the number one most underrated way to save money on taxes because I put hundreds of thousands of dollars into those policies annually, and they grow every single year uninterrupted and compounding interest tax free. You can't do that anywhere else that I'm aware of, and that's why I do it.
Amazing. See, I hope everyone's listening to this part. I think a lot of time we get so many questions about, what is fair? What should I be paying? Why should I be paying taxes? But, other than, when the whole system overhaul, right, of the IRS, it is what it is, what we have right now in America. And everyone should be looking to optimize their situation in the best way possible. And
Indeed.
obviously, Jason has found a way that works for his business, but there's so many more ways out there, right, where you can make sure that you don't pay more than you have. Because, trust me, the country's in debt. Uncle Sam and IRS will love to collect as much money from you as possible, and they're not going to give any money back that you want to give them, right? So it's up to
Nope.
you to learn the tax code, hire the right professionals if you need to, and get yourself in the best situation possible. Because it's your hard-earned profit at the end of the day, and you don't want to give that away,
Yep.
right? So awesome, Jason. What's next for you and your business now that we got past the tax management part? Any exciting plans or projects on the horizon?
Well, what I'm really excited about with the Exeter Club is that we've got 5 other coaches on my team that are just really phenomenal, top notch, top in their industry. Attorneys and investment bankers and CPAs like yourself, and they're just really good people, and they love what we do because they understand that the payoff of what we teach people is that entrepreneurs get to go back to their families, they get to go back to their communities, and they get to actually invest time and energy into those things that the company used to steal. We only get so much time on this planet, and if we spend all of our time dedicated to the business because we believe that it needs us, we miss the time with our kids and our wives or husbands or whatever,
Absolutely.
and with our churches and our communities. And so we get to see people get to spend that time as they choose, and that's the payoff. So for me, we're in aggressive growth mode as a mastermind. I'm wanting to double the membership this year, and I believe that we're going to be on track to do that. And what's interesting is that just makes the mastermind that much more valuable for every single person because it multiplies the value because perspectives. So we do 3 live events in Nashville every year. Our first event of the year was supposed to be in January, but the ice storm that hit Nashville kind of canceled that, so we had to push it. So it's coming up next week. I don't know when this episode comes out, but it's coming up. And we do 2 days of really intensive workshopping here in Nashville, and I'm excited about that. And I'm living what I preach too. I've got 90 days scheduled to be off this year, and I did that. I designed that on purpose. So I'm running a mastermind for entrepreneurs that I can be away from for 90 days in a given year, not all at once, but throughout the course of the year. And I'm teaching my clients to do the same thing. So I love it.
You can write a whole book on how you can get 90 days off a year. Jason, I will buy that book. I'll be one of your
Yeah.
first buyers because I didn't figure out how to get 90 days off, especially just when tax season right now. Jason, amazing. I'll be amiss if I didn't ask this question. So I'm really curious, right? You know how the AI revolution right now is taking over all industries. Any concern or fear of that about how it impacts your industry and how you're kind of preparing for the AI future here?
As far as how it impacts the coaching industry, I was just on a podcast 2 weeks ago, and I'm actually hosting him, the host of that show, as a guest on my show tomorrow. And he wrote a book called "The AI and the Rise of AI and the Demise of Coaching." That might not be the right title, but he was pretty bullish or bearish, I guess. I don't know which one it is, against on AI, how it's going to decimate the coaching industry. And what we agreed on is that I believe that AI will indeed decimate the coaching industry, but only at the lower end. Like if you've got a coach who is not very good, they don't have any experience. I mean, these 22-year-old life coaches that are on Instagram and TikTok, like
The influencer
what the
ones,
heck do
yes.
they know, right? I mean, those
Yeah.
people are going to be done away with because AI, it has enough information and is conversational enough that you don't need to pay somebody a few $100 a month just to have conversations.
Right.
That's not. But in terms of the upper end and the elite edge, the elite area of the coaching world, I think AI, for those that leverage it, is just going to make it even more valuable because every one of my clients uses some form of AI at some point during their days, whether it's personally or through the business. But I found that most of them don't know how to leverage it. They don't know how to do it. So I spend considerable amount of time showing them how, because I'm a deep, deep user of it. And I was just speaking at a conference in Chicago this past weekend, and one of the guest speakers on stage is an AI expert, and he's amazing. He's from London. His name's John Lee. And I said, John, I need you to come to Nashville. We need to do a couple days. We need to do an AI deep dive, and he's coming. So I'm investing in teaching people how to do this because that is really the way of the future. We've got to lean into it. For anybody who was around when Google first came out, if you said, I'm not going to use Google, you got left behind. Or when
Yeah.
when the internet hit, I'm not going to use that World Wide Web. I'm out. Well, you got left behind. Or when the Yellow Pages back in the 70s, when that came out, it's like, oh, I'm not advertising the Yellow Pages. You got left behind. We're now AI. I was at that conference and they said, Jason, how can people get in touch with you? I said, you look up the Real Jason Duncan on any AI platform, anywhere online, you're going to find me. And I hope that's true because I have found it to be true when I'm looking for myself, because I want to make sure I'm located, that people can find me and people can see what I teach and what my methodologies are. We've got to lean into it. I don't think it's a threat as much as people think that it is.
Incredible. I'm looking forward to the day where I'm just searching for something and your name just pops up, right? As the subject matter expert for those things. So that's the new way to search these days, right? People don't
Exactly.
Google search anymore. They search in like a ChatGPT, a Claude, and then that's the expertise they trust now, right?
Yep.
Going forward, and that's the authorization there. Cool. Jason, we always end our show with what we call the final advice. If you can give one piece of advice to someone just starting the entrepreneur journey, what would it be? It can be 1, 2, or 3 simple steps to get started, get them off their couch. And maybe they're listening to this right now and said, man, I don't know how I can become a Jason Duncan. Look at him. He's so handsome and sway, and I can never be like him. What would you say to that person out there and to really get them going?
If in practical terms, you need to hire a business coach and a bookkeeper as soon as possible. A business coach and a bookkeeper as soon as possible, because the bookkeeping, you should never sleep with your bookkeeper, sleep in the same house with your bookkeeper. It needs to be somebody who has no bias to how the books are being kept. So that's number one. And then number two, the business coach. I tell you, I told you the story earlier. When we hired a business coach, that was when everything changed for us in business. And again, it was not magic. It's all about a matter of perspective. And so I think you look at that just as critical as any piece of equipment that you might want to buy that you say you can't afford. Well, if you're running an ice cream store and you say, well, I can start the store, but I can't afford a freezer, you're not going to be in business very long. So I think you look at a business coach as critical as a piece of equipment like a freezer. So that's the practical stuff. But as far as the other stuff, I would say is that you need to become a student of mindset. I think you need to become a student of mindset, because the only thing that our God has allowed us to have complete control over is how we think about things. That's it. We have no control over anything else on this planet. We have no control over anything else. So how you think about things will dictate your reality. And if you don't become a student of mindset, you will be dictated by other people's realities. You will think whatever they tell you. You will react with worry and fear every time something happens that you don't like, and you will be a victim of your own fear and anxieties. So when I became a student of mindset, everything changed about how I saw impossible things. So I had, after I became a student of mindset, I went through a pretty bad business thing that happened, and it was the closest to bankruptcy I've ever been in my life. And hope to God I never have to actually file it, but who knows? You never, entrepreneurs, you never know. But I got so close that we actually filled the paperwork out. That's how close we were there. We were
Wow.
ready to file. But through that all, the positive mindset, and not just being Pollyanna, just saying daily affirmations, that's not what I mean, but my mindset to push through allowed me not to go into the dark places that so many people go. I don't want to make light of people who commit suicide, but I've never wanted to do that. But in that dark time, I could see how, had my mind not been as strong as it was, that might have been a consideration I would have given. So we need to be students of mindset, because everything is going to come down to how you think about it. And if you don't strengthen your mind and how you think about things, you're going to be a victim your whole life.
Yes, yes, I'm agreement with there. The bookkeeper, business coach, student mindset, and I really think that business coach and student mindset can go hand in hand, right? Someone who
Yeah.
can kind of guide you out of that dark zone that you might be in, right? That mental block you might be in, thinking that this is it, this is the only path I have, and there's nothing else for me right out there, like, and really
Mhm.
guiding you back to the light as needed. So,
Yeah.
great advice there, Jason. Jason, that was fantastic. I mean, thank you so much for sharing your story and insight with us. It's fantastic, and trust me, there's plenty of business out there who are stuck. and if they find themselves with a business that they do not know how to exit from. And I think they would really benefit from your teachings and coaching. So would love to know, one, how to get in contact with you, and if you have any kind of shout out or ways that they can connect with you, please let the audience know.
Well, I would encourage anybody to connect with me on any of the social media channels, specifically Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube at the Real Jason Duncan. That's where you're going to find me. As we said, any of the AI platforms, just ask who he is, and you'll probably find me. But if you are an entrepreneur, I would say I've got 6 minute video that you should watch. It's 6 minutes. It's called "What to Fix Before You Exit." It's 6 minutes. It's really informative. It'll give you a kind of an insight, and it offers you the opportunity to go a little bit deeper, of course, if you want, because 6 minutes, you don't get a whole lot done in 6 minutes, but at least it's an appetizer. So go to whattofixbeforeyouexit.com. That's whattofixbeforeyouexit.com. And this is not just for people wanting to sell their businesses. These are for people that just don't want to be slaves to their businesses. So whattofixbeforeyouexit.com.
Sounds like that's gonna be one of the most valuable 6 minutes you ever spent on a video, guys. So I highly encourage that. We're gonna put all of Jason's social media accounts in our show notes along with the link to that video. So then please go check it out. If you have any other questions for Jason, please reach out. You never know what speaking to someone for a few minutes can change your life. Jason, thanks again for being on the show. It's great to have you here. Hopefully in a year's time, maybe you can give us an update on how things are going. Is that okay with you?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thanks so much. If anyone out there, thanks for tuning in. Alan out.